delighted now to introduce our baccalaureate speaker, an outstanding student leader, and no stranger to you graduates and to the Evangel University family. She's graduating with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a degree in biblical studies. During her time at Evangel, she has served as a member of Crosswalk for 3.5 years and is currently the executive director of Crosswalk. She also serves as vice president of a newer club, For the Culture, a celebration of excellence that promotes campus diversity and cultural awareness. She has served as discipleship administrator of Spence Hall and an office assistant in the communication department. After graduation, she will be attending the clinical mental health counseling program here at Evangel, and I'm also delighted to announce that she has accepted my invitation next academic year to serve full-time as coordinator for student ministries and discipleship. She hopes one day to become the proud mother to a pet pig named Harold. It's my delight to introduce to you Cecilia Corbin.
The Board of Trustees, our exceptional professors, and you, my dear friends, for giving me this opportunity. I am deeply humbled by this honor, and quite frankly, I'm still in shock that I'm standing here before you today. I would also like to say thank you to my exceptional family. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for calling me your own, and thank you for making me a Corbin. Being a part of the Corbin clan is by far the best organization I have ever been a part of. Several weeks ago, I received this meme at an unholy hour from the king of Crocs himself, Mr. Luke Carpenter. And upon viewing it, I instantly panicked because it was a little too real for me. I enjoy walking through life blissfully unaware of the impending responsibilities, and this meme really put a cramp in my style. I show it to you today because I believe it perfectly summarizes the conundrum we find ourselves in today. We stand on the precipice of a new season, being handed the responsibility of making use of our lives. And amidst apartment shopping and wedding planning and this newfound freedom of not having to keep 2 feet on the floor, a new question arises in the back of our minds. What now? For 4 years, the aim of our lives has been to get to this moment, and as beautiful as it is, it too is fleeting. A beautiful pilgrimage of epic proportions lies in front of us, and we must now ask, what is the new target? What is the new direction of our lives? Thankfully, we are not the first to ponder this question, nor will we be the last. In fact, poets, theologians, and the authors of scripture have wrestled with this notion for centuries. And through their different disciplines, they have worked to offer an answer to this question. What is the aim of the lives that we lead? The renowned American poet Walt Whitman produced one of his most significant works whilst trying to reconcile this question. He surveys the world and finds foolishness run rampant in his life and the lives of those around him. And he is desperate to make good use of his life. And out of his hunger for meaning and his rattling thoughts, he writes a poem entitled, O Me, O Life, which reads, O me, O life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, of myself forever reproaching myself for who more faithless than I, and who more foolish, of eyes that vainly crave the light, of the object's mean, of the struggle ever renewed, of the poor results of all, of the plotting and sordid crowds I see around me, of the empty and useless years of the rest with me intertwined, the question, oh me, so sad, recurring, what good amid these, oh me, oh life? And the answer? That you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. Wonderful, isn't it? We might suppose this is the conclusion. The case has been closed and we have received our answer. From dust we came, to dust we shall return, and our lives are really just a blip in the universe's timeline it's set. For that brief space in between life's beginning and death. In that space, in that tiny, minuscule period, we are tasked with contributing a verse to the symphony of life. Easy, right? I think not. Even in this answer, I find more questions arise. Specifically, what does it mean to contribute a verse to the symphony of life, and better yet, how do we do it? Well, again, we find ourselves in luck, or shall we say providence, because we're Christians. Hundreds of years ago, a bunch of dudes with big brains and bad haircuts answered the very question we are working to reconcile today. Together, they composed the Westminster Catechism, a document intended to be used by ministers in the instruction of their congregants to promote orthodoxy and sound teaching. In one part of the document, they asked this question: what is the chief aim of man? When I researched the background of the Catechism's creation, I found pictures of a bunch of dudes in robes with those white collars that are really just built-in napkins. So it was pretty clear to me that they kind of had to flex on people by using terms like the chief end of man. All they're really asking is, what are we supposed to do with the lives we have been given? This is the answer they produced. The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. With the life we have been given, we are meant to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Were you surprised by that answer? I was. Not because of what the answer contained, but really because of what it lacked. In that answer, there was no mention of riches or fame or grandeur or contracts to the NFL. There was no description of 3-story homes, Gucci handbags, or courtside seats. And it's funny, because these old dudes from 1647 weren't really the first ones to come to this conclusion. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the narrator, often dubbed the preacher, searches for the meaning of life. As he surveys the earth, he becomes distraught in the face of what he finds. He hopes that he will find meaning in the wisdom and wealth and riches and pleasures that life has to offer. He hopes that he will find meaning in the Instagram verified status, the 6-figure income, and the Coach wallet. And instead, he finds that it is all nothing but vanity. To quote him in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 2, he writes, "Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless." In October of 2019, I was a junior here at Evangel, and from the outside, the carefully crafted image of my life portrayed that I was living my best days. I had finally entered my upper division courses and ditched the gen eds. I had hit my stride in my job. A handsome man had really taken notice of me. So that was ending in a lot of free dinner. Hallelujah. My social life was the busiest it had ever been. And I grew almost an inch. Call me a medical miracle. You could say that my life was really on the up and up. And yet, beneath that independent, strong, hustle-hard girl facade, there was an emptiness that had overtaken my insides. For 3 years, I had worked for everything that I had in that moment, and none of it filled me with the sense of elation or joy that I had anticipated it would. And then I understood what the preacher was saying. Meaningless. It was utterly meaningless. I know what you're thinking. This is a really great baccalaureate speech, Cecilia. Well, you can relax. Because thankfully, the preacher doesn't stop writing in chapter 1. In chapter 12, we step into the tail end of his journey, and we are met with his conclusion. In verses 13 to 14, he writes this: "Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil." After his search for the meaning of life, the preacher's quest can come to an end because he has discovered the answer. What do we do with our lives now? We fear God and we keep his commandments. Let's recount what we've learned, shall we? We know the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. We know that the pleasures of life are meaningless unless we fear God and keep his commandments. And still, there's this gnawing question, like, no, really, what do we do now? I told you about junior year, Cecilia. But now I'd like to tell you about senior year Cecilia, because she's so evolved. Per usual, she had some lessons to learn, and let me tell you, the corona made sure that happened. Like many of you, I found myself placed in student leadership in the midst of a year that no science fiction novelist could have dreamed up. I gave it my best. I reread my group dynamics notes. I smiled behind my little mask and I uttered, "We got this," and I worked with my crosswalk co-leader Bryce to reorganize our programs to adjust them to the new normal surrounding us. And guess what little old me learned? I learned that it didn't work. No amount of performance or sassy jests could salvage what we were losing in the midst of this unprecedented year. So when I finally came to the end of myself, I found one thing. It was actually the only thing that worked. Living a life of faith and enjoying my Creator in the process. Why do we fear God and keep his commandments? We do so because fearing God and maintaining his commands is the perfect platform to glorify God and enjoy him forever, because it draws us into relationship with him. Our fear and our reverence for God reminds us of his magnificence, and our commitment to what we ask gives us clear hearts when we commune with him. It is from this position that we are catapulted into a life that glorifies God. It is from this position that we springboard into a life where we can enjoy our Creator forever. When I had this realization in Pastor Greg's office, I was both thrilled and overwhelmed. That all sounds fine, dandy, but I questioned, what does it look like in practice? If the Instagram posts and the six-figure income, and dare I say even the degrees we just got, are all, please give me my degree, are all just vanity in the end, then what does it mean to live a life that is truly glorifying to God? Well, those of you who are far brighter than I have realized by now that we have already learned how to live this kind of life. Over the last 4 years, we have been inundated with examples. We learned what it means to glorify God when we watched Dr. Kelly teach research methods with all of the enthusiasm and joy of a professor first day on the job. We learned what it means to glorify God when we listened to Dr. Middlestat ask us questions that caused us to examine our own hearts, our theology, and their impact on the people that we were called to serve. We learned what it means to glorify God when we sat with Dr. Johns in his office And he cried with us when we mourned. He laughed with us when we triumphed. And he loved us, even when we were difficult to love. Without realizing it, the last 4 years have initiated a transformation in our hearts that extends far beyond our newfound academic prowess. In our classrooms, in our halls, and on our athletic fields, we have been glorifying God already and learning what it means to enjoy him in the simple places. Though this is the end of a season, it is only the beginning of a lifelong journey. In this place that we have called home for the last 4 years, we have been equipped with everything we need to fulfill the chief aim of our lives. Here we have had the meaning of life reshaped. Here, through the trials and the change, we have learned to fear God and maintain his commandments. And here, we have borne witness to tangible examples of what it looks like to glorify God and enjoy him forever. So now, we are perfectly positioned to contribute our verse to the melody of life. So my dear friends, as you set out from this place, I wish for you fulfilling vocations and church communities in which you feel at home, and beautiful spouses, should the Lord provide. I hope you forever treasure this season, and I pray that time does not make us strangers. But most of all, I entreat you to make the glorification and the enjoyment of your God, your King, and your Creator the cause of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia.